Pretty, isn't it? Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
If the laws of science are framed in their most perfect, most symmetrical form, then life cannot exist at all.
At the dawn of the universe, there was nothing. Boom! Big Bang sends 6 elemental crystals hurtling across the virgin universe.
So here we have the Big Bang, and then the timeline of the universe. This is where we are.
Pretty, isn't it? Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Perhaps you agree with Thanos' quote that the universe should be perfectly balanced. That's why, despite the evil of wiping out half of all life using the Infinity Stones, Thanos believed he had a noble intention, restoring this universal balance.
If life is left unchecked, life will cease to exist. It needs correction.
You don't know that!
However, Thanos had got that nothing in this world is perfect, because perfection belongs only to God. This might sound like a religious reference, but believe it or not, science shows the same thing.
If the laws of science are framed in their most perfect, most symmetrical form, then life cannot exist at all.
Theoretical physicist Professor Michio Kaku uses the analogy of a spinning top, instructing us to wish that it would keep spinning and never stop, signifying perfect balance. But the reality is that it won't. Eventually, the top will stop spinning.
The slightest imperfection, the slightest little defect will cause it to vibrate, perturb, and fall to a lower energy state. Symmetry has been broken.
What Kaku means is that the universe works precisely because there are flaws in every component. That is what allows us to see reality.
Come back to reality, Tom.
In other words, the universe functions because every law of nature limits its own perfection. Why? Because it is merely a fragment of the true perfection, which in mathematics is called symmetry. Like a butterfly's wings, we know the left wing is just a piece of the right wing because we know the two wings are symmetric. Thus, we see the butterfly's perfection when we view both wings together.
Everything we see around us is nothing but fragments of this original perfection. Whenever you see a beautiful snowflake, a beautiful crystal, or even the symmetry of stars in the universe, that's a fragment. That's a piece of the original symmetry at the beginning of time.
The concept of symmetry in physics was first demonstrated by a mathematician named Noether. She showed that from a mathematical standpoint, the known laws of physics, like the conservation of momentum or the conservation of energy, are actually just consequences of symmetry. That's what drives scientists to continuously correct existing theories, such as Newton's law of gravity, which was later corrected by Einstein to become the theory of relativity. And the deeper they delved, the more they realized that everything is governed by one single overarching symmetry.
The laws are dictated, really, in their form by requiring tremendous amounts of symmetry. That's how we found them.
And it keeps getting us to look for deeper and deeper connections. So ultimately, perhaps we exist because the universe had no other choice.
An equation has no meaning to me unless it expresses a thought of God.
At the dawn of the universe, there was nothing. Then, boom! Big Bang sends 6 elemental crystals hurtling across the virgin universe.
You're talking about the moment of creation.
Yes.
The Big Bang is a theory where Stephen Hawking, whom you may know as an atheist scientist, actually once acknowledged the existence of a creator. This is written in his book, A Brief History of Time.
If we ever learn this, it would be the ultimate triumph of human reason, for then we would know the mind of God. Do you mean this?
Yes.
And why not? The Big Bang is a difficult theory to refute because science itself proves it. Hawking was among those who proved that the universe had a beginning.
You proved the universe had a beginning and thus a need for a creator.
So here we have the Big Bang, and then the timeline of the universe. This is where we are.
The discovery of this theory stemmed from an astronomer whose name was given to the largest telescope, Edwin Hubble. He was the first person to prove with his telescope that the universe is truly vast. Objects once thought to be merely dust clouds in space, called nebulae, turned out to be collections of galaxies in distant locations. Astronomers currently estimate that the cosmos contains over 200 billion galaxies. Even more surprising, when Hubble observed these galaxies, he discovered that they were all moving away from us, and the farther a galaxy was, the faster it receded. This was proven by the redshift of light waves, indicating they're moving farther away.
But if the source is moving away from us, the wavelength is stretched towards the red end of the spectrum, or redshifted in the parlance of astronomers.
Another scientist, George Lamontre, tried to explain this phenomenon. It wasn't just galaxies moving apart, but the entire universe was expanding, much like an inflating balloon. This is where scientists realized that if time were run backward, there would be a moment when the universe originated from a single point.
What if I reverse the process all the way back to see what happened at the beginning of time itself?
The beginning of time itself?
Yes.
Further proof of the Big Bang is the accidental discovery of its radiation footprint, called cosmic microwave background, or CMB, by two astronomers, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, using their trumpet-like antenna.
But there's one thing you might misunderstand about the Big Bang. You might think the universe was empty and the Big Bang filled it. No, not even empty space existed, and time itself had not yet begun. Einstein's theory of general relativity established that matter, space, and time are an indivisible unity. This means the universe is expanding along with space-time itself. The question then becomes, how do scientists describe that single point where space-time itself becomes irrelevant? Unfortunately, they cannot explain it beyond calling it a singularity.
And at its end point, what are we left with? A space-time singularity.
It's difficult to explain what a singularity is because in mathematics and physics, it's used to define something undefined. Undefined doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means it exists but is beyond human comprehension.
What do you mean keep going up? Before the universe began?
No. Keep going, develop the mathematics.
They couldn't come up with a good answer, so we just say it's undefined. This is where our understanding of mathematics breaks down and we just call it a singularity.
For example, in mathematics, dividing 1 by 0 is also called a singularity. Try typing 1 divided by 0 into your calculator. You'll see it can't be divided, or if you use a Google calculator, the result is infinity.
These infinity stones each control an essential aspect of existence.
Stones with powers, like the Infinity Stones, don't exist in the real world unless you believe in some magic stones or the like. But if you take a scientific approach, there are 4 fundamental forces that govern the power of the universe. Gravity, the electromagnetic force, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. If you've studied physics, every force you've learnt about ultimately boils down to these 4 forces. These 4 forces govern the universe from 2 sides. Gravity governs the macroscopic world, how planets and galaxies move, the remaining 3 forces govern the microscopic world, how particles within an atom interact. Because of this, there are 2 major theories in physics that describe these 2 realms.
2 great pillars of physics are quantum theory, the laws that govern the very small particles, electrons and so on, and general relativity.
Yes, Einstein.
Einstein's theory, the laws that govern the very large planets and such.
Stephen Hawking sought to unite these 2 theories, or these 4 forces, into a single unified theory, much like Thanos wanted to unite the 6 Infinity Stones.
Stephen is looking for a single theory that explains all the forces in the universe. Therefore, God must die.
In the end, it was not God who died, but Hawking who passed away before that single theory was found. In fact, before his death, Hawking gave up, saying, "Some people will be very disappointed if there is not an ultimate theory that can be formulated in terms of a few principles. I used to be one of them, but I have changed my mind." Regardless of whether that single theory will ever be found, as some scientists still believe it exists, let's talk briefly about quantum theory.
Have either of you guys ever studied quantum physics? The quantum realm is like its own microscopic universe. To get in there, you have to be incredibly small.
This is the most complex theory to understand, not just for us, but for its discoverers as well. Richard Feynman, a physicist involved in the theory, famously said, "If you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics." Why is that? Physics, as you know, is called an exact science because it measures precisely. For example, it can accurately measure where a missile will land when fired at a certain angle and speed, or predict where you will arrive at a destination by measuring the distance and your car's speed via GPS. Strangely, when scientists try to apply this to the smallest entities in the universe, particles, the laws of physics seem to collapse instantly. They cannot accurately predict a particle's position or velocity at the same time. In other words, the very nature of a particle is unpredictable.
The more accurately we measure the velocity of a particle, the less accurately we can measure its position in space. And according to my esteemed colleague, the particle does not exist at all until we observe it.
That makes absolutely no sense to me.
Exactly.
See, the rules of the quantum realm aren't like they are up here. Everything is unpredictable. Is that anybody's sandwich? I'm starving.
This reality shook the world of scientists. Why would the most fundamental building block of the universe be determined by something unmeasurable? They held a special meeting to discuss it. All the inventors of the science world were invited, including Einstein, at a gathering later known as the Copenhagen Interpretation. Einstein famously stated, "God does not play dice," unwilling to accept a universe determined by unpredictability. This statement was later countered by Stephen Hawking, who said, "God not only plays dice, but sometimes throws them where they cannot be seen." What is your conclusion from this story? What is the end game? You can desire the power of a Thanos or a king on a throne with all his might. You can desire the intelligence of a Tony Stark or a scientist with his theoretical genius. But let us not be cursed by that power and intelligence itself.
You're not the only one cursed with knowledge.
My only curse is you.
Power in this world always has limits. Reason always has limits.
I am inevitable.
The universe itself demonstrates its imperfection, showing that it only bows to a greater perfection. If we feel intelligent, remember that we can't even explain a creature as small as a mosquito, or smaller than that, or even smaller than that. Reason is not meant to know everything. Reason is meant to acknowledge the one who owns everything. He is perfect. He is one. He is infinite.